My name is John Forbes, and I'm going to give a whistle-stop tour of the last 5 years of the Zero Carbon Cumbria project, which hopefully complements the various videos which highlight some of the fantastic activities which have been taking place as part of this lottery-funded project. So good stories often start with a prologue, and great things were already happening in Cumbria when the idea of a Zero Carbon Cumbria partnership was born in 2019. As examples, taking climate action had already been recognised as a priority in Cumbria's health strategy, and at a leaders' meeting it was agreed that Cumbria should show leadership in terms of taking climate action. Our ambition of a zero-carbon Cumbria by 2037 was based on a detailed analysis of greenhouse gas emissions undertaken by Small World Consulting, and then a team led by my colleague Hazel put together the application to the National Lottery, and we were delighted when they awarded us £2.5 million for the 5-year Zero Carbon Cumbria project. In the early stages, it was very much about recruiting the team, putting in place the systems, the processes and the structures required to deliver the project, not just for ourselves but for all of our delivery partners. As an example, Lynn at Vista Veg had to recruit 5 farmers for the Homegrown Here project, and you can find out more about this project in the Homegrown Here film. And of course, we had to do all of this during the COVID lockdown. We were operating in an online world, so recruitment, delivery meetings, events, and even the Copeland's People Panel, the first of our citizens' juries, were all done online. And then, towards the end of 2021, you'll remember that there was the COP meeting in Glasgow, COP26. This meeting acted as a catalyst for the first of our series of Great Big Green Week events during September 2021. Our first Youth Climate Summit also had a focus on the COP26 meeting, and this summit was held online. However, by this time we could also meet in person, and the Cumbria Sustainability Network held an in-person event at the Footprint just outside Windermere. It was great to be able to get back together, meet everybody, and look forward to the next 5 years of activity supported through the Zero Carbon Cumbria project. Around the same time, Art Jean held a fantastic event at their allotment soup site on Walney Island, which is a great example of using food to generate interest in climate and biodiversity. You can find out more about Art Jean in one of the various videos. By the end of 2021, we'd put in place all the systems required to administer the community climate grants. This included establishing the grants panel, who've been brilliant, and also developing application forms and guidance. We launched the community climate grants in November 2021. As the project started to build momentum, we awarded our first grant. If I remember correctly, it was a grant of just under £2,000 to Brampton to Zero, the first of many grants that we've allocated through our Community Climate Grant Fund. The Climate Champions were launched around the same time, and I think Joe Human was part of the first cohort, and he's still actively involved. Many of us will have heard him speak and would agree that he's a really powerful speaker and has been a great community champion and advocate for taking climate action. Karen Bentley-Brown of Simply Repair developed best practice guidance for repair cafes, and this is covered in more detail in one of the other videos. Also in the summer of 2022, there was a brilliant project in Carlisle, Once Upon a Planet, with Sustainable Carlisle working with the Tully House Museum. It's a great example of some of the partnership working that we supported through the Zero Carbon Cumbria project over the years. The ZCCP website was launched towards the end of 22. It's a highly respected and a great resource which has been developed by a comms colleague, and it has gone on to win an award. And by the end of December 2022, we'd achieved a really significant milestone of training over 1,000 people in terms of the carbon literacy programme. As the project developed further, 2023 was a really significant year for us. We were delighted when the National Lottery agreed to increase the funding for the project so that we could recruit 2 new posts to support the sector groups. Bex as the Cumbria Emissions Reduction Project Manager, and Robin as the Sector Group Administrator. Some of you may have been there when we relaunched the sector groups in April 2023, and within a year they had produced 4 emission reduction action plans. These are highly respected and describe the pathways and the actions required to achieve our ambition of a net zero Cumbria by 2037. This was also the beginning of our more strategic work, supported by the Strategic Oversight Board, which had been established and was initially chaired by Steve Curl. This year was also the first time that we moved the Great Big Green Week events to June. This move was based on feedback from community groups so that more of the events could be held outdoors. We updated the baseline and published a summary of greenhouse gas emissions in Cumbria and our proposed trajectories to net zero. And we're also keen to start to broaden engagement. And Helen, working together with a number of community organisations, established what we now call West Together, community organisations collaborating and working together in the west of Cumbria. We also introduced a new Climate Fresque course. It has been very popular, and those of us who have done it can vouch that it's a brilliant way to understand and learn about climate change. Our climate training programme is led by my colleague Hazel with support from Joe and Rosie, and you can find out more about this training programme in one of the other videos. And then in March 2024 we held the first of our Zero Carbon Cumbria summits. These summits have been fantastic at enabling us to facilitate collaboration across sectors, looking at some of the key priorities and what can be done to move climate action forward in Cumbria. Then, as the project moved into its 4th year, it was really important to extend our reach and broaden engagement. So we continued to support the West Together initiative on the West Coast, and the Youth Climate Summit was also held in Whitehaven. We also continued to support the Great Big Green Week, and by the end of 2024 we'd allocated over £200,000 in community climate grants and community renewable energy grants to support a wide range of community projects across the whole of Cumbria. And then in early 2025 we held the second of our Zero Carbon Cumbria summits. This summit built on the first and focused on various asks for government and other stakeholders to enable us to move forward our emission reduction action plans. I also heard recently when I was catching up with colleagues from PACT, which stands for Penrith Action for Community Transition, that what had started as a seed swap 5 years ago had developed into what's now called Seedy Saturday, covering a whole range of activities around local growing. It's a really good example of how things have been able to build and develop over the 5 years of the Zero Carbon Cumbria project. And one of the things which is really nice to see is how there are more and more connections being made across different aspects of the project. A good example of this is where young people have been involved in some of the Great Big Green Week activities and also in various community projects. Also, and really significant for us, at the end of March 2025, our partner Shared Future facilitated the first meeting of the Cumbria Climate Assembly. Anna, Karen and our marketing colleagues, together with a fantastic oversight panel, have been supporting Shared Future as the Assembly reflects one of our ongoing priorities to extend our influence and ensure that citizens' voices are heard in the decisions which affect their everyday lives, particularly around climate change. You can find out more about the Climate Assembly in one of the other videos. June 2025 also saw the 5th year of the Great Big Green Week events. We're now widely respected as having very many more of these events than other parts of the UK, and this highlights the ongoing importance of our community-led delivery. The Youth Summit in 2025 took place in Barrow-in-Furness, so we've now held youth summits in 4 different locations across Cumbria: Carlisle, Kendal, Whitehaven and Barrow. These summits have been led by our partner CDEC, the Cumbria Development Education Centre, and you can find out more about our youth programmes in one of the other videos. Reflecting the growing importance of influence, our events and training coordinator Jane facilitated meetings with all 6 of the MPs representing different parts of Cumbria. And as a real tribute to the work of the sector groups, if you look at all the meetings we've organised to support the development and implementation of the emission reduction action plans, including the smaller discussion sessions, there have been more than 100 meetings. We recognise that a lot of the members of these groups are volunteers, and we are hugely grateful for all the effort they've put in, as it's such an important part of our programme. Food continues to be important, and we were very pleased to secure some additional funding from Innovate UK to work with Westmoreland and Furness Council to develop what we now call Cumbrian Carrot Connections. This project, which has been led by Laura, our low carbon food project manager, has generated a lot of interest trying to get locally grown Cumbrian carrots into school meals, and we've been really encouraged by the positive response from the schools for this project. You can find out more about this and some of the other food projects in one of the other videos, as well as the really inspiring film about the Homegrown Here project. By the beginning of December 2025, 265 people and organisations had signed the Cumbria Climate Assembly Charter. We'd be really keen for more people and organisations to sign, and Pete from Shared Future mentioned that the Assembly members are also hoping for more. They would like us to get 1,000 signatures. Building on the emission reduction action plans, my colleagues Bex and David Pickup have also been working with David Murphy and Michael Mills from the University of Cumbria on a series of briefing papers on really key topics like policy influence, building civil society, funding and data. These are published on the ZCCP website, and there'll be a webinar on each of the 4 topics in February. Also, and really significant for us, is that we're delighted and really grateful to the Westmoreland and Furness Council, who've approved funding to enable some of the key elements of the Zero Carbon Cumbria project to continue until March 2027. So that's a whistle-stop tour through some of the activities and some of the milestones over the last 5 years. There are also a series of videos if you'd like to find out more about any of the activities. I'd also like to take this opportunity to say a few thank yous. First, to the National Lottery. As well as the funding, Maria, Anna and Christine have all been brilliant in helping us throughout the project. I would also like to thank our other funders and sponsors, in particular Westmoreland and Furness Council. I'd like to thank Karen for her exceptional leadership and support of Zero Carbon Cumbria, David and Angela for co-chairing the partnership, Tim as the partnership manager, and Sarah, Richard, Graham and Steve for chairing the Strategic Oversight Board. I'd like to thank all my colleagues, both within Futureproof Cumbria and our other delivery partners, and everyone else who's been involved and supported the work of ZCC, including sector group members, members of the Cumbria Sustainability Network, Assembly members, Community Grants Panel, Oversight Board, and hundreds of volunteers across the county, and to all of our partners. Thank you.